Evening, everybody, and welcome back to Photography Live and Uncut. You know, I get a couple of emails now and then from people who want to join me on the show, and I really do love receiving those emails. And my guest tonight is no different. She sent me an email a few months ago, in actual fact, but my schedule was so tight with guests that I had lined up. But it so happened an empty slot came available, and I asked her if she'd join me, and she was delighted to. And my guest tonight is Mary Presson Roberts. Welcome to my show, Mary.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. We've got a common link with the Arcanum. We'll talk about the Arcanum later because there's so much value out of it. And I just hope the way things are going with the Arcanum that it's going to get better and more people will come on board. But we'll talk about that later. Can I take you right the way back when you were a young girl? What was your first recollection of a camera in your household?
The first camera I remember in the household was a Kodak 110.
Right, yeah.
Mom used. And we would frequently get the pictures back, and she would have put her finger in the picture somewhere. And so that was always a running joke in our house, is we'd get the pictures back and she would have her finger as part of the subject. So that was my first.
It was my first camera, the Kodak 110. It wasn't the first camera I remember though. My first camera that I remember was a little blue box, which my grandfather had. I hadn't got a clue what it was, and I used to look down in this viewfinder, and this smoky little image was there, and I used to say to him, "What is this?" And he said, "It's a camera." I'm like, "Oh, okay," and used to put it away. But I was probably about 4 or 5 at the time. I hadn't got a clue. But Kodak 110 Instamatic was the first camera that I had. And lovely, neat little camera, neat camera to use. So with regards to photography, Mary, did you get an interest at that early stage, or did you have other interests when you went through school life?
The first camera I remember having was a Kodak handle, and right. I don't familiar with that. It was the one that was like an instant camera, and then Polaroid ended up fighting them, and that got taken off. So I got that camera as my first camera and was able to have maybe 1 pack of film before they took that off the shelves. And then all through my life, I took a lot of snapshots, but I really haven't been into photography until about 9 years ago. So it's been about 9 years ago that I got.
It's interesting because a lot of my guests that are doing professional and hobbyists always have an interest in something at school. And those that have gone down the photography line, there are so many that have been involved with photography and obviously art in the painted form. Did you have any interest in those things at school?
I have not. I did not do art in that sense. My mother's an artist, so I was really in art all through my life, and she has all kinds of different painting and designing needlepoint canvases. So I really have been immersed in art all through my life. As an educator of young children, I used art in my work with the children, but I have not studied art as an art form on its own.
Is that when you were at school then, is that what you wanted to set out to do? You wanted to be a teacher?
Yes. I start my 30th year teaching young children. This year will be my 30th year.
And what age do you teach?
I teach first graders.
Okay, so could you give me an idea, because that's probably different from what we've got over in the UK. What sort of age is that?
7-year-olds, 6 and 7-year-olds.
6 and 7-year-olds, right? Okay. Yeah, I think we're on the same sort of wavelength now with regards to this. I always remember my first year was my first year at senior school. And when my daughter went, I'm in the 5th year, and I'm going, well, what year is that? You know, so we got a little bit out of context really with the way the years were being announced, which when they were at school. So you're teaching 6 and 7-year-olds. So it's gone 30 years. That's quite an extensive career. Going back to your school days, you were really interested in teaching. Was there a specific reason for you teaching the younger ones, or did it just happen that way?
It just kind of happened that way with where I was placed for student teaching. But then once I started working with the age group, I wouldn't pick anything else. It was definitely the place where I wanted to be. And with the children I teach, they're learning to read. And I get children at the beginning of the year who can't read, and by the end of the year they can. And it's like watching magic happen.
Yeah.
And so I just wouldn't trade that for anything in the world.
My wife used to teach slow readers at school as a sort of teacher's assistant. And one funny story was that there was a brother and a sister, twins, or probably a year apart from one another. And the boy went up to her, and Jane, my wife, said to him, "Have you done your work over this bank holiday, this Easter break?" And he said, "No, I'm terribly sorry, Mrs. Griffiths. I haven't been able to do it this weekend. We went home." So she said, "Oh, home?" He said, "Yes, we went home to Athens to see my family, and we had a party over there, and I just didn't get any work done." This is an 8-year-old, 9-year-old talking to Jane like this, you see. Oh, okay, well, no worries at all. So started doing the reading, and he didn't do too badly. And then up came the sister, and she said, "Oh, you've had a lovely weekend." So she said, "Yes, I did some needlework with my mummy, and I did some reading like you asked me to do." And she said, Jane said, "And what about your trip to Athens?" And she went, "No, we didn't go to Athens." Oh dear. Oh right, okay, we got you sussed out. It was so funny the way she described it to me. I thought, this is brilliant. Oh dear, what's the saying, in the mouths of babes or whatever it is? Oh, absolutely. So funny, absolutely so funny. But that's the way it is. So you're on the same sort of line of teaching these guys to read, and I suppose it must be really great when all of a sudden they just get it and they love sitting down and reading.
Exactly.
It's a fantastic thing. So this is interesting on the situation. You're well involved with photography. No photography going on at all while you're teaching until basically you say 9 years ago.
9 years ago. I always took snapshots. I always took snapshots and enjoyed pictures and looking at them, but I didn't do anything with that. About 9 years ago, there was an advertisement for a class to learn DSLR at a local botanical garden. And I knew I was interested. And so I contacted the instructor to see if perhaps they rented cameras for you to take the class. And although he did not have that capability, he did point me to a DSLR that was like an entry level. And I already had a couple of lenses with a film camera that I was using just to take on automatic. And so I looked into purchasing a DSLR. At that time, money wasn't readily available for me to make that kind of purchase. So I went into an area of my house. My dad had once given me a gold coin and told me to save it for something special. And so I took that gold coin and found out it was within $25 what the DSLR body cost. Okay. And so I cashed in the coin and I bought my first DSLR. And
what was that camera that you bought?
The D80.
Okay. Nikon D80.
Yes.
Yeah. I always get confused with Canon and Nikon because originally Canon started calling their cameras D something, and then they switched it round when I think Nikon started calling their cameras D40, D50, D60, and so on and so forth. So that's a lovely story that you were able to use this gold coin for a special reason. And it's also another good point you mentioned as regards to trying to hire out equipment. And I wish so many people would do this before they actually dive into photography, whether it's to buy a new camera or a new lens, that they don't go and hire that particular piece of equipment first of all to try it out to see if it suits their work. So you went to this workshop by the sound of things for the botanical gardens. How did you find it?
My mother actually has a membership to the botanical garden, and they sent out catalogs, and so I think I got a hold of the catalog and looked at it there.
Okay, and with regards to the workshop itself, did you learn much from it? Were you pleased with it or disappointed with it?
I was very pleased with it. I don't learn technical things very easily or quickly. So I took a lot of classes more than once to really fully understand the material initially. And I am very happy and thrilled with the foundation that I was able to get from that instructor at the Botanical Garden, Dave Kelly. Gave me my foundation, and I was very appreciative. And I have had such wonderful teachers all through these 9 years. That I credit so much of what I do to them and their care and helping with me.
Would you say there's been a sort of, I asked Ron Clifford this question a couple of weeks ago. Would you say there's been a defining moment when you realized that photography was a little bit more than taking snapshots?
The first time a defining moment when I saw a difference was before I even started in photography. When I was just taking pictures, I went into a colleague's classroom, and she had pictures of her children that she had taken. And I noticed a depth to her images that was not in anything I had ever done. And I think that might have been a time where I really had a desire to learn more about photography, because looking at her images of those children, and they just seemed to come alive, and knew that that's something that I would like to see in something that I would create.
It's so nice to hear someone's talk about someone else's work, which has given you the impetus, the interest, that bug for you to get started, where you see some imagery and you think, wow, that's something which I would like to attempt to do myself. And then, of course, you take it the stage further and get involved with photography. So with the Nikon D80, have you sort of developed on from that camera, or is that still your camera of choice?
I had the D80, and then I shot with the D700.
Yep.
And I'm currently shooting with the D800.
D800, yeah. So you're definitely not a mirrorless girl by any stretch of the imagination. You're basically a DSLR user.
That I'm a DSLR user at this point.
You haven't been tempted to the dark side, as people would say.
I've been watching very carefully and paying attention and waiting. So
it's an interesting thing, actually, because I recently I've started another little show called In My Opinion, and it's a contentious program deliberately to get people to react, to make people comment. And one argument, for want of description, in the photography world at the moment is that why haven't Nikon and Canon made a 1.5 crop or 1.6 in the Canon, or a full frame mirrorless camera? And everyone's sort of saying, when are they going to do it? And they've got to step up to the plate. They've got to get involved with this market, which they're missing out on. And it suddenly dawned on me one day when I was in the shop, because I've switched to mirrorless. I'm a Fuji user. I was a Nikon user before. And everyone makes that switch because they want a smaller camera body, and they probably want smaller lenses. And I was in the shop there one day, and I looked at the Olympus, the OMDs, and the Fuji XT1, and the Panasonics, the Lumix cameras, and then the Nikon D3300 and 5300. And they're no different in size. The Olympus is a little bit smaller, admittedly. They're no different in size. What is the main difference in them is the fact that the Nikons have a very, very big battery, and of course they have to keep that distance from the lens to the sensor. That is the basic difference between them. So my vlog, for want of description, was Nikon and Canon haven't been left behind. They know exactly what they're doing. They've got this market with a superb stable of lenses, which will never be beaten, in my opinion, because they've got so many there available. So it's in a way, I can understand why people. No, I'm used to using DSLR cameras. It suits me down to the ground. I think probably in terms of, would you say that macro photography is better used with a DSLR than a mirrorless camera?
Since I haven't used the mirrorless, I don't want to really make that comparison.
Yeah.
I heard that, but I don't have, firsthand experience to back that up.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard is that I don't think the lenses are there in the mirrorless system to go with the macro that you can achieve with Canon and Nikon cameras. So you're now shooting with a D800. Could you just give us an idea of what your camera equipment is? What lenses have you got in your little stock?
I regularly carry the 16 and 35.
Yep.
And I have just recently gotten an 80 to 400, which I like a great deal. And I found that I take that more often than I take my 7200 because 7200 is heavier and I have more range with the 8400.
Yep.
I have a fisheye that I like to play with. And then just my regular zoom lens that my mid-range.
Yeah.
And I also have a macro 200 millimeter and a 105 macro.
105 macro. Yeah.
But I tend to take the 200 more often now.
What I think we'll do now is we'll go to a screen share, Mary, because I want to ask you some questions when we actually look at, especially at your macro work and how you basically set up your camera in terms of focusing points, the equipment you're using and that sort of thing. But let's first of all, let's look at the fantastic portfolio of some gardens in South Carolina.
Thank you.
And I just want to I think what a lot of people have got to appreciate when they see photography like this is all about composition, because we can all potentially go into a garden and take a photograph, but we've got to have a point of focus and we've got to have things in the right place in an image. And this particular one really sums it all up because of the position of the bench on the thirds and then the branch here and the leaves. Could you just talk us through this particular place? It's a place you visit quite often, isn't it?
It is indeed. Charleston, South Carolina is one of my favorite places to photograph. And I actually had the opportunity to live there for 5 years. Right out of college, my first teaching position was in Charleston. So it's a place that is dear to my heart. I go each spring to visit the gardens when the azaleas are blooming and spend a lot of time at Magnolia Garden where this image was taken. And when the azaleas are blooming, I will get in the car at 3 a.m. to head down there and get there by sunrise. It's not uncommon for me to go and do that just for one day, get up at 3 or 2 a.m. and get where I want to be and photograph and then come home at the end of the day. So this image was taken a couple of springs ago in that garden.
It's lovely. Do you get a special dispensation by the people that organize the gardens? Are you allowed to go in without any other public around, or are you basically waiting for that moment when the public disappear?
It used to be that you could buy a photographer's pass there, which would allow you to get in a little early. But if you first thing in the morning, you can typically get into areas in the garden so large that you can get into areas without many people around if you get there early.
The reason I asked you was there's a garden quite close to me, a place called Wisley. And my wife and I went there a few weeks ago, and I noticed as we were coming in at about 10 o'clock, there were a load of photographers walking out. So they were had got some dispensation to go in early and get some work done before anybody turned up.
Right.
The next shot we have here, which is this as I mentioned before, superb image of the feathers here. Firstly, what bird was it? And secondly, could you just give us a general description of how you took the image?
This is a rooster, and this was also taken at Magnolia Gardens, and they have an area like a zoo where you can go in there, and it was a rooster just sitting up somewhere. I believe I used my 7200.
Okay.
Just got as close as I could and got this image.
And it was handheld?
Probably was handheld, though I do most of everything else on the tripod.
Yeah. And you don't have any problems with using the tripod in the garden? In the gardens? No?
Not the gardens that I go to, I have not had a problem. The most restrictive I've had is where you have to register that you're a tripod user. But most times I've been okay.
Yeah. I'm just scrolling through some images here of this gardens and beautiful scenic shots. This one's lovely. I love this shot here. Lovely reflection on the water here of what you can't see above, which is a very clever way to compose the image. And then this tree arch branch dropping down into the thirds, which is great. Beautiful colors. This area here reminds me of Augusta, the where they play the Masters.
Yes.
So it's beautiful. I'm looking at this image here, Mary. I'm going to pick your brains again. Slow shutter speed by the looks of things. So you got this mirror type effect of the water. Am I correct?
I had to get it fast enough so that the Spanish moss wasn't blurred. So I imagine that I had to play with it to kind of get a fine balance there.
Okay. And what sort of work would you have done on this image? We'll say in the editing stage back home.
I take everything into Lightroom first and make basic adjustments there. I typically will take things into Photoshop and do some color work on it in Photoshop. Almost everything I use some selective color on in Photoshop because I love colors. And may have done something using Color Effects Pro. Right.
Okay. Yeah. That's a very good plug-in, the Color Effects Pro. It's the peacock again. Beautiful images, lovely wisteria there. Love it.
Thank you.
I don't know where I got the name wisteria from, but I know I'm right. But I don't know where that came from. Beautiful. I love this shot here.
Thank you very much. It's just, I find it so peaceful being in those gardens in the spring.
Now, I can't see a flower in sight on this one. What's this one all about?
Not a flower. That's on an aircraft carrier, also in Charleston.
Oh, okay.
Patriots Point.
Just to interrupt the flowers for a second, just to put a little bit different slant on things. Nice silhouette. The white peacock. Beautiful sunset.
Thank you.
Is that sunset enhanced in any way, or is that as we would see it?
Well, I feel that I enhance pretty much everything I do at some point. I mean, just with taking the raw file and using filters and plugins and what is available to me to show the scene the way I saw it when I was there.
I was just going to ask you that question, actually. Let's come out of screen share for a second, because that's an interesting point you made. As I was looking at that image, I was just thinking of Karen Hutton, you'll know from the thing. Were you by chance in Karen Hutton's cohort before AD Wheelers, or have you always been with AD? You weren't? Okay.
I was in Les Saucier's cohort before AD's.
Oh, right. Okay. Now, Karen's been on my show a couple of times, and we were talking about her sunsets and her landscapes, and she in actual fact said exactly what you've just said. She takes the photograph and then goes back to the studio to work on the effects of the photograph that she wanted to see. And what you've done there is, excuse me, is enhanced the sunset as regards to how you would have liked to. You were representing the sunset as you wanted to see it in a print and an image. And he's done that very well. And that's exactly what Karen Hutton said. And I was just thinking that as that image came up, that I got the impression that you'd made the image look like how you wanted to see the sunset at that time.
Well, thank you.
It's interesting that we come across Karen Hutton, fantastic photographer. Let's go back to the galleries, because as we talked before the show, we wanted to talk about the macro work. Very detailed website, I might add, Mary, where you're showing a good coverage of all your work rather than concentrating in just one area. But these shots here, sorry, go ahead.
My website is all because of Andy Wheeler, AD Wheeler in the Arcanum, because
Yeah.
I've in Sphere 2, we've been working together and on web presence. And this website as it is, I did have another website before this, but this website didn't even exist before being in his cohort. And he has worked so closely with all of us to build websites. I know that he's done at least 17 websites with his apprentices. So I'm so appreciative. It would not be what it is without him.
Now, this is macro work, which I have an interest in myself, but I've never really sort of, be honest with you, had the patience to do it. And I haven't got the gear, to be quite honest, to do it. My majority of my work would be street photography and architectural type work. Let's talk about the macro work here in terms of the gear that you're using. Let's take this one as an example.
I probably had the 100 millimeter macro lens. I have the shorter one and then the 200 millimeter, which I've gotten more recently. Those are my two main lenses. And so I just, I spend a lot of time. I find that when I'm doing macro, the main thing I need to do is spend a lot of time to make sure that I'm working the subject the way I want to. I need to make sure that I get really quiet and often do my macro work when I'm by myself. So I can concentrate, because I find that the macro work takes more concentration on my part than landscape and other types of photography.
Is this just a single shot, or have you taken sections of the image? I don't know if you know the work by Don Komarechka with his ice and snowflakes, where it probably takes something in the region of about 300 images to different focal length points of the particular snowflake. Is this just a one single shot?
Yeah, most of mine are single shots, no focus stacking.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you for helping me out there. Focus stacking. That's what I was referring to. And this is quite interesting, actually, as regards to the amount of detail that you're getting in there with just that one shot and the rain droplet here. Another one here. Lovely detail. Is this with the Nikon 800 again?
That might be with the 700.
700, yeah.
But I find I'm off in the summers as a school teacher, and so I will try and spend about a week. There's a sunflower field about 40 minutes from me, and I try and spend about a week each year working in the fields at some point in the day, just so I can get different light and different opportunities and take a lot of time to get some different compositions and try and get something different every time I go.
I didn't mention it before when we were looking at the gardens. There was one where you've done a sort of like a painterly effect, and here you've done it with this particular one. Is this something which you're going to look to develop on, or is it just sort of to a degree every now and then an opportunity where you think it would be better as a painterly type image?
I do enjoy using the painting software, especially like Topaz Impression. And I do find it works better on certain types of images than others, and just enjoy it as a different look.
Sometimes it's good to do something like this to sort of, you can have sort of like a writer's block, can't you? In photography, you get into I'm going to use the word rut, but it's the wrong word. And you want something to happen, and it's good to just go out and do something totally different, or edit something totally different, to free yourself up, to go back again and start creating your work. There's another painterly one here.
That one was done with multiple exposures. In the camera.
That's neat.
Thank you.
Nice one here as well. Backlit shots. And let's just scroll down. That's the bottom of that particular one. Fantastic website, Mary, with, as I say, a very broad coverage of your travel and the gardens and the macro work. We haven't got time to look at your travel work as well. But let's talk about the Arcanum now in terms, because I think I might be right in suggesting that the Arcanum came along at the right time for you for the development of your photography.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Mentor that I've had let me know about the Arcanum. Les Saucier. I've taken several workshops and things with him. And he said, you need to look into this. This looks exciting. And so I did, and I joined the Arcanum. And my initial master left the Arcanum shortly after I joined. And then I ended up going into Les's cohort for Sphere 1 and to finish up Sphere 1. I found that the learning style there really met my needs. It's completely different than taking an online course, because I've tried those before and I didn't do as well with just the online learning. I felt so removed from it. But with the Arcanum, with the interaction with your master and your fellow apprentices, that you're learning all the time. You're learning from your master, you're learning from your apprentices, and you're learning from the resources that are available within the Grand Library.
That's true.
I feel that you can get as much out of it as you put into it. And it really is a unique experience.
And that's a very, sorry to interrupt you, that's a very, very good point you make there. You get out of it what you put into it, which probably doesn't occur that much with, we'll say, a normal workshop, or as you say, an online one-on-one online experience with a photographer.
And I've also found that I'm making lasting relationships with photographers that I never would have had the opportunity to meet. My Sphere 1 master not only worked with me on teaching me photography, but in branching me over into being a teacher of photography and taking the two things that I love best, teaching and photography. And just this past spring, I co-led a workshop, a photo tour with him in Charleston, which that was one of the albums that we looked at. And then my Sphere 2 master, A.D. Wheeler, who's done so much in helping me learn about web presence and building my website. I'm actually going to join A.D. and other members of my cohort and other cohorts in Acadia Saturday for a week to photograph. So I'm building relationships with people I never would have had the opportunity to, and going all along.
This is the most intriguing part about the Arcanum, which I find is very difficult to get across to someone if they're outside and you're trying to sort of encourage them to come in, because the first thing they think about is cost. And then once you get past the cost factor, then you start to describe what the cohort is all about. And they immediately think, and then when I first started off with my cohort with Valerie Jardin in Foundation and Sphere 1, a lot of the apprentices in that group thought that they were going to be able to get Valerie online at every second of the day to talk about their work. And of course, that's not how the Arcanum works. That's the thing. You've got to somehow, when you're talking to someone, you have to get the point across to them that the unique thing about the Arcanum is learning with and alongside and from your fellow apprentices. Because they do make some very, very good comments about your work. And they're generally, obviously from my experience with Valerie Jardin, we were all doing street photography, and there were some fantastic street photographers in that cohort. And you're learning so much from the style of their work and what they were suggesting as regards to how you could go about a simple project of taking portraits of strangers in the street, which I never ever expected myself to be able to do. And And I think this is one of the things about the Arcanum which a lot of people don't really appreciate. Yes, you can go and spend your $98, $100 on a workshop, or $3,500 on a workshop for a week with someone, but then it's not ongoing. You've had your experience, haven't you? And then you've got to then go off and do your own. But with the Arcanum, it's there with you all the time.
Exactly. Exactly. And the people that you get to meet, and not only people that are in your own cohort, but people in other cohorts. I mean, I just have found it to be really life-changing.
Yes. And at the same time, it's no doubt it's improved your photography. But the one thing I find that we're very, very intriguing here is the fact that now you are teaching photography. How did that come about?
I knew that that's the direction I wanted to go in. As I mentioned, this is my 30th year as an educator in the public schools. Sometime in the future, I will retire from that position.
Yeah.
And looking towards the future and what I would like to do. And as I mentioned, I have two loves. I love photography and I love being an educator. And so it just kind of made sense that would be the way I would go. Oh. So that's what started it. And then I had some opportunities that came up leading the photo tour with Les in Charleston. Also, I led a mentorship in G+ mentorship program for photographers. And that was a very rewarding experience. It was a 6-week mentorship and I had 20 students, and I was able to do this about 8 months prior to that. I was a participant in one of those mentorships and got to benefit from that wonderful program.
Yeah, that's interesting. That G+ thing was event there. Was that a local event or was this an online event?
It's online and Google Plus, and it's a G+ mentorship program for photographers, and that's head up by Ron Clifford and Robin Wood and Alex Lapidus. And they brought this together. And so there are classes that are offered throughout the year when people decide to do that. And they are free to participants. And it is similar to the Arcanum in its structure, in that there's a G+ community that's set up where you interact with fellow photographers. And it's really a tremendous program.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, I've heard of it, but I haven't followed up on that particular mentorship. I must have a look at it myself. So this is obviously a plan for you down the line. It's a similar plan to what I'm looking to do, actually, because I've started my own personal online workshop with a few followers, and just doing a free sort of talk online with the guys, and starting them through from the basics through to doing a little bit of critique work on their work, where they placed put on the Flickr site. And as I say, I want to start doing workshops, and this is obviously something which you yourself want to do when the time comes to stop the regular teaching job.
Absolutely. And what I did find doing the mentorship and the first photo tour, especially in the mentorship, is the joy I see with my children as they're learning and growing, and that just feeling of happiness was the same that I got working with adults, and when they were making their discoveries with the things that we were doing with the creativity with their camera. And it's just very rewarding being able to share the joy that you have and the information that you have with others.
Yeah. And your workshops and your teaching, is that predominantly towards landscape photography, botanical type work, or are you looking to cover other genres?
It's mainly the main focus of the next two I'm doing in September. I'm doing with Lorraine Shannon. We're teaching a Nature and Not Creativity is Key workshop, and then I'm going to co-lead a workshop with Les again next summer in Brevard. And I think the main focus is going to be on creativity, because as the technology of cameras is getting so strong, even with iPhones, I think that more of an emphasis on good composition and creativity in composition to get your work to stand out from those of others is really important at this time, more so than ever. So I think that the main focus of my workshops going forward will be on the creativity.
That's another good point you make there, because I remember a judge coming along to one of my camera clubs a number of years ago, well-respected photographer in my county of Kent, and he said, before we go any further, folks, I know you've all got good cameras, they all focus, you've all got good lenses, so I'm looking for something really, really special. And it made me think at that point, he's right. The camera are so good these days. The lenses are tremendous. It's the gray matter and the eye for the photograph which stands you out above the rest. And of course, at the same time, there comes a time, obviously, where you've got to see that, you've got to be tutored that. But it's a very good point you make as regards to the gear is there. Now you've got to have the vision to create that work and edit it correctly and then edit it well in the tools that we've got. There's so many tools. It's really interesting the way that your career has gone through from the teaching, then you're learning something totally new with regards to your photography and almost coming out of the other end back into teaching, but following on from one of your passions, which is really fantastic. What genre of photography are you not really happy with taking?
When people ask me what I photograph, I say anything but people. That's essentially sums it up. But I really think that the reason that I don't photograph people is my day job is so people oriented. Yeah. So I think my photography is kind of what I do when I'm not working. So it kind of has been a way to look at things differently.
Yeah.
So I think that probably is why I don't photograph people, but I'm not sure. It's just a thought.
Do you think it's anything to do with about basically where you live? I'm getting the impression that you don't live close to a city. Would I be right there? Are you closer more to countryside areas?
I live 30 minutes from Charlotte, North Carolina. I actually work in Charlotte, so I'm pretty close. I just I like the peace that I get in nature.
Yeah,
I feel a strong sense of peace when I'm out in nature, and I think that has a big draw for me.
Yeah, and again, another point you make there, Les Ingram, an Arcanum master, Karen Hutton, and one other, the name I forget at the moment, all talk about this when they go out taking photographs, nature photography, botanical, landscape. They all talk about peace, all talk about sitting, taking it all in, and then starting to take their photographs. Mary, we come to that point of the show where I'm going to ask the question. A lot of photographers balk at this question because I don't know, they don't want to think that their work is influenced, or there are just so many photographers out there that they can't make their decision which is their favorite. But who would be your favorite photographer?
I do have many, like everyone does, but Brian Peterson has been very influential on my view of photography and work and education. He is a fabulous photographer. I noticed from his photographs the vibrant colors that I was so drawn to. I just love color. And also, he was one of my first teachers in photography because he puts out such wonderful, easy to understand books, understanding shutter speed and understanding exposure, just a couple of his books. I was able to see him speak at certain things. And then I've also had the pleasure of attending 2 of his workshops. So he is an amazing photographer and educator. So I would definitely say that he's had a great.
He's your favorite. He's your favorite, and by the sound of things, a well chosen favorite for many reasons. But who would be the person who's been this question has changed over the last few months. I've just realised, because I used to say who's been the inspiration. Now I've changed it to who's been the most influential. So Take your pick. Inspirational or influential to your photography? Who's that been?
Both inspirational and influential, without question, has to be my mother. And the reason is, although she doesn't photograph, she's been an artist all her life. And she taught me through watching her live how to live a creative life. Mm-hmm. And I will be forever indebted to her for that, and teaching me, and the joy of just seeing things differently and living a creative life. So that without question, it's my mother.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Nice to think of. I'm the same, actually. My mother would be my influence. She thought I was the best photographer in the world, and that was good enough for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Mary, thank you so much. Firstly, thank you so much for sending me the email to request if you could come on the show. It's been lovely talking to you and looking at your work, and it's a fantastic website. And for all those that have helped you out, a little pat on the back for those guys. But that's the nuts and bolts. The thing that's got to be on there is the work, to show the work, and that's your bit. And it's really a fantastic website. Congratulations on everything else. There's one bit I didn't touch on. I noticed in the about page, the number of accolades and the number of awards that you've accumulated is quite outstanding. There are quite a number there, which obviously local awards and all sort of thing, but you've got to be in it to win it. And so congratulations on that. That's absolutely superb to see, and it's good that you've shown that on the site.
Thank you so much.
Finally, just to say to you, all the best for your future career when you get into doing your workshops, and with a bit of luck, we'll be able to meet up again and have another chat online here and talk about how that career is going. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate this opportunity. That's no problem at all. No problem. So, well, this is a Tuesday. There was going to be a show on Thursday, but I've had to cancel it because I got a call, and I've got to go and do some work in south of France over the next few days. So there's no show this Thursday. But if you are going out shooting at the weekend, leave your camera bag at home. All the best to you. Bye for now.